real happy to have my next guest on the Sports Card Nation guest line, and I'm not just saying that because he's a fellow Pittsburgh Steeler fan. That doesn't hurt either. But happy to have him, Anthony Celender. Did I say that right?
Celender. Yeah, you were
Celender.
close.
All right. Picksburgh on YouTube does some great
So,
content, and when I see guys that are passionate for the hobby, they stand out. And seeing what you were doing, and said, "Man, gotta have them on." Then saw, it was pretty obvious you were a Steeler fan. That didn't
mhm.
hurt your cause either. We'll maybe get to them towards the back end of the show. We're going to talk some hobby, but kind of give sort of your hobby background. Did you grow up in? Are you from Pittsburgh? Grew up in Pittsburgh?
Born and raised. I've lived in Pittsburgh all the way until January 2nd of this year. I moved to
Okay.
Los Angeles.
So did you with cards? I mean, was it something you did as a kid?
Mhm.
Where did it come into play for you?
Yeah, so I started when I was a kid collecting Steelers, actually, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing for me was trying to collect all of my favorite players growing up.
And I mean, did you? Is it the age old story, Anthony? Like got out of it, kind of came back later, or did you really kind of stick with it like the whole way?
Sort of both and. I was always sort of like I always had my collection. I wasn't always actively
Yeah.
buying it. Such a compulsive, I should say, level like I am now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some years where I kind of just had it collected dust on the shelf, but I still kind of maintain that collection. But yeah, I mean, as of the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've just been like pretty heavy back into it, especially since the pandemic. Because the pandemic was really where I kind of had a career shift towards cards more so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the perfect, I've said on this show, it was the perfect storm, right? Right. Is
Hmm.
one of the few industries, if you will, that actually, prospered during the pandemic. And
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of new people, you had more people at home, either working from home or unfortunately maybe not working, more tabs open on the computer. I think we've all been guilty of that at least once, right? We
Oh
have our
yeah.
work computers open, and that eBay tab is
Hmm.
open, or CompC, or whatever
Hmm. Oh yeah.
hobby tab it might be. I'm guilty as charged, and and so a lot more downtime. We had that stimulus packages where
Hmm.
if you were on unemployment, you got bonuses. And my wife was actually out of work for 2 weeks, and the 2 weeks unemployment checks with the bonuses, she actually made more money the 2 weeks she was laid off just temporarily.
Mm.
She went back to the same job, but and actually
Wow.
she had coworkers that didn't want to go back to work because they were liking the extra money. But
Yeah.
so then there
Imagine.
was a surplus of money, and it was just sort of the perfect storm. We're seeing now sort of a calming down. Some things have kind of settled down, but we still,
Hmm.
we see celebrities, pseudo celebrities, athletes
Hmm.
in the hobby now, and talking about it and posting on their social media about it, buying cards. And
Yep.
it's just it's a different. I've done this a long time. I'm the old man on the porch, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I'm older than you, but it's a different hobby than years ago. And that, I'm not saying that necessarily is a bad
Mhm.
thing. I'm just saying, like a lot of things, things evolve, things
Mhm.
change. Like I
Yeah.
venture so you started kind of collecting with the Steelers. Good choice there. You won't
Oh
get any
yeah. Yeah.
arguments from me.
Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates, but mainly
Yeah,
Steelers because like they've
yeah.
always been my number one.
Yeah. Have now obviously like you said, you've gotten bigger in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
Where has your interest what has changed as far as what you may PC or purchase?
You know what really got me back into it was basketball cards. And this was even like prior to like the boom and stuff. I'm a diehard Cleveland Cavalier fan, which living in Pittsburgh, you'd be like, how do you like a Cleveland team?
Well, there is
But
no there is no Pittsburgh. pro team.
Exactly. And geographically, they're half the distance of the 76ers who are in our home state. So
Yeah,
the Cavs have always been kind of like my pseudo home team. So I actually got really into collecting cards again whenever I started collecting the Cavs cards because I already had like all the Steelers I grew up on, but then like there was like a whole bunch of Cavs I needed to catch up on over the years. So filling out that kind of like re-sparked my love, kind of for the hobby.
yeah. Long listen, I don't blame you there. As long as you don't become a Browns fan, then
No,
I know
that'll
what's
never.
wrong.
No, that'll never happen. I can assure you of that.
So now, generally, what is your interest like? Do you resell? Do you PC everything? Do you sell to
Mhm.
like add to your PC? Kind of what's kind of your approach to the hobby?
Sort of both and the big thing for me is I want to add as many key pieces to my collection from like things that I value, like that mainly being Steelers and Cavaliers. You know what I mean? Like I want to have the key rookies, that kind of stuff. So I'm a collector first, like first and foremost. Like I absolutely like my cards. They're like children to me. Like they're precious. Like if I'm like that dude from the Lord of the Rings, like precious. That's how I feel about my cards a lot of the time. But yeah, I also will like go and buy like raw cards, send them into like grading company, flip them,
Yeah,
and it's something I've done for years, just because I've always had kind of like a good eye identifying cards that will grade typically 9 to 10, and
yeah,
especially back when grading was like more affordable. Back
yeah,
before the big boom of COVID and 2020 and
yeah,
all that stuff. It used to be like great, return on money. But even since the market's kind of cooled down, you can still do really well if you have a good eye for
yeah,
number one talent, spotting it before they kind of pop. Like Joe Burrow, like if you were stocking up on him when he tore his ACL last season, he
yeah.
cashed out big time this season when he made it to the Super Bowl. So it's just being an opportunist. Number one, whenever you find a good opportunity like the Burrow situation, or number two, just having like a good way of identifying like condition, and if you can tell condition, roughly within like a grade point, you can pretty much make some good money sending cards out to get graded and stuff like that. So that was kind of how like I started even working towards cards. Was I was selling on eBay for pretty much several years as I group submitted to like SGC, Beckett, like a lot of like the bigger grading companies.
Yeah, I've seen your YouTube shows where you actually like you do your unboxing of from SGC, which they're a sponsor of this show. I
Mhm.
gotta give them a shameless plug. But
Awesome.
Beckett, PSA, and even some other ones, lesser known ones. I like how you did that.
Mhm.
What was the premise there? Where you just kind of wanted to see how each of them does, uh, performs their job and kind of just test the
Mhm.
landscape out. Was that really the
It
direction
was
there?
it was two part really. The first reason was I kind of want, especially the bigger companies, the more well known companies. I wanted to learn their grade scale and such like. So if I send cards in, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to get back. You know what I mean? And if you haven't sent to somebody, you kind of don't know. Like for example,
Yeah.
like I feel that CSG is a very hard grader. Like for example, the same card I would send to them and to SGC, I feel like I'd get a more favorable outcome with SGC just because they're a little more hard with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I take into account when grading. So when I tried them all, was I kind of wanted to see kind of who graded what how. You know what I
Get
mean?
like a
And
base
I,
get like a baseline
Mhm.
of and you can as someone who's graded with numerous companies, you do it enough, you'll get a feel for sort of their MO
Mhm.
and how they do things. So I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
truth to that. Another thing I want to piggyback off you said, Anthony, you make a great point about how fickle the hobby can be and how not being fickle, you can take advantage of that, right?
Mhm.
I don't get it. Joe Burrow gets hurt. I know it's a bad injury, and everyone just jumped off the Burrow boat. Like the guys, obviously we know now he just almost just won the Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
people are funny in the hobby. When someone gets hurt, they act as if like every injury's like career ending and it's over
Mm-hmm.
when it's not. Now, we can bring up Zion as an example. Some of these are
Mm-hmm.
becoming maybe some worrisome, if you will, like that. That I get. That makes a little bit more sense. But I'm talking in the respect where the guy has the first injury and it's everyone. It's over already,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I think it's what have you done for me lately kind of mindset. But you make a
Mm-hmm.
great point. Burrow's a great example of that. When he got hurt, everyone was lowering the prices, and it was a great
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to,
Absolutely.
to buy. And obviously, it paid off right now. And you
Mm-hmm.
see that happen before. I mean, even Brady, he's got 7 Super Bowl rings, right? He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get to the Super Bowl this year. It wasn't a big dip, but there was a little Brady dip, and like it doesn't tarnish what he already did. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going away, and so it's funny sometimes how the hobby can be kind of what have you done for me today, and
Mm-hmm.
but it's a great. I've bought stuff on those premises when other people were panic selling, if you want to call it that, and
Mm-hmm.
or moved off somebody
Mm-hmm.
because they were hurt, or maybe even had a bad stretch or even a bad year.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yep.
guy can have a bad year doesn't mean that every year is going to be like that. And if you don't think it's going to be like that, it's a great opportunity to get stuff at a discounted cost. It's a great point by you. It's funny
Mm-hmm.
how the hobby works like
Mm-hmm.
that, but that's uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think of some of the newer folks coming in. I think maybe that attributes that. I don't want to put it all on them. I don't think that's fair, but I'm sure that's a small percentage or a decent enough percentage where it's a factor. But it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of your thoughts. With Fanatics now, kind of owning 3/4 of those major licensing with baseball, basketball, and football.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking forward to it? Are you cautiously optimistic? Kind of where do your thoughts fall on that question?
You know what? I'm looking forward to it in a sense that I expect them to do it with excellence. They also are the biggest licensor of like equipment for a lot of these teams too. So I'd really like to see them get a lot more cool with the way they do their like relics and stuff. Like WWE has a set, I think it's called Fully Loaded, where they like actually have like chunks of chair, ladder, like all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff in their cards. With Fanatics, like literally being the people that make the stuff that they actually use in game, it would be kind of cool to like have like something really cool like that put into their product now. Being that I would imagine they have that capability. So like
Oh,
that's the thing that I
yeah,
most would like to see out of it. But I think it's a good thing. I do think Panini and Topps they'll probably still keep printing stuff into the ground. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And eventually we may even see another Wild West like we had in the '90s where it was like literally everybody and their mom printing cards. I don't know if you remember back in the
Well,
days. I don't know if
we're
Kmart's a brand, but a
yeah.
brand like a natural national thing. But back in the day, man, you can go and get like any different type of card, and they had like a million different brands.
What I think, and I don't want to speak for fanatics. It's just
Hmm.
we're all putting our speculators hats on and kind of you predicting what we think is going to happen. They've pretty much said they're gonna really try to do away with the distribution model. So those big distributors might be in trouble. I think they're going to be direct to consumer, but I also think fanatics wants to get they want to, the hobby already is mainstream, but I
Hmm.
think they want to make it even more so. Where no matter, like you brought up a good point, maybe you will see it in a store that we're currently not seeing cards right now, but eventually we will. And I'm an LCS guy as a former
Hmm.
LCS owner. I hope. I
Hmm.
don't. I think they're going to be fine with Fanatics. But
Hmm.
and I hope that is the case because they have a place in my heart as a former owner, and I think it's
Yeah.
important. You should be able to walk into a card store. I know you even did some content with going to card stores. There's something about
Mm-hmm.
going in the card store
Yeah.
and having conversations with fellow hobbyists, the store owner
Mm-hmm.
themselves, buying
Mm-hmm.
cards, looking at cards. There's something that
Mm-hmm.
is sure, it's fun to buy stuff online too. I get it. I do it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about those in-person transactions, a card store, a card show. I
Mm-hmm.
think, and there's a lot of smart people that work at Fanatics. They know that. I
Mm-hmm.
think the model's going to be favorable to card stores, and I sure hope it will be. If I'm a distributor, not
Mm-hmm.
so much. I think that's where Fanatics is going to look to eliminate that. We could do a whole show on why. I think most people in the hobby can kind of figure out some price gouging, some holding product
Mm-hmm.
back, wait until the hype goes up, and then that sort of thing. Fanatics saw that even though they weren't in the hobby officially, they did have some card dealings and collaborations, and
Mm-hmm.
I think they took notice, and they paid a lot of money for the licensing. They're going to want
Mm-hmm.
to get those Fanatics cards out there in the hands of as many people as they can. I think you drove that
Absolutely.
home with your point. I just hope. I guess my fear, Anthony. I don't want to say fear. I guess my hope is they do it in the right manner. That it's just not.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're gonna. You got your flagship brands where there's going to be a lot more produced. I just hope
Mm-hmm.
everything's just not always mass produced where I'm not saying I just in the hobby for values or what stuff is worth or
Mm-hmm.
goes for, but that is a factor. I think when you're plunking down your hard-earned money too, right? You want to at least
Oh yeah.
feel like, hey, I got a chance. Like worst case scenario, if I ever have to sell some of this, I'll be all right. And I just hope they find that balance
Mm-hmm.
where they can produce enough stuff to make it worth their while. They're a business that just bought a license. I get it, but not go too far and tip the scales where there's a negative reaction to it. And there are a lot of smart people there. I'm gonna I use the term cautiously optimistic that
Mm-hmm.
that'll be all right, but we're gonna see. I've said I think the next 2 to 5 years are going to really lay down the groundwork for what the next 10 or 20 are really going to be like. They're going to
Oh
set
yeah.
the tone in the next 2 to 5, and we'll know here soon with the acquisition of Tops, kind of maybe what
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking, and we'll see if there are any further acquisitions or not. I don't think they're done buying different things up, and we'll have to see, where they're going to put their money. That's the one thing for me, Anthony, that I enjoy with the hobby is watching all this stuff and seeing what's going to be next. There's thing I've done this a long time. There's things I thought I'd never see. Right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, opening packs with my friends, and they'd have their packs, I had my packs, and maybe they were done opening their packs, and I wasn't done opening mine, and they'd be like, John, let me open some of your packs. And I'd be like, no, you open yours. These are mine. And yet now we're, in the breaking era. We pay breakers to open our boxes or cases and packs for us, and then just mail us whatever
Mm-hmm.
comes out of those packs. It just if you would have told me years ago that would have been the thing, I would have thought you're nuts. But here we are. You would have told me
Yeah.
NFTs. If you would have told me
Mm-hmm.
NFTs would be a big hit, I would have thought you're crazy. But yet here we are, and they're a huge
Yeah.
hit. It's a different era. It's a different generation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that in a bad way. Things evolve. I may not like NFTs. I don't know, what your thoughts on it, but I'm sort of old school. I got to have it. I got to be able to have it in my hand and put it on my desk or in a case or whatever. But a lot of other people love them. People
Mm-hmm.
profited off them. What's kind of your how do you view them? Is this something you do?
I haven't really delved into NFTs. I'm not so much anti them. I just don't know a whole lot about it. I never really got into Top Shot or, any of like the craze. Like I've always wanted to. Like I have a buddy of mine who doesn't really do NFT content, but he would go live doing his Top Shot pack openings and like so I would go watch him and I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool, but like I don't really get it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like a video of a guy doing something, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's worth like a ton of money. I just, you know what I mean? So outside of that, that's really the only experience with them I have currently. But I'm not against getting into NFTs. You know what I mean? I would just need a little more education before I'd, you know, probably delve into, investing in them and stuff like that.
Yeah, it can, and for someone like me that's a little old school, can the terrain can be a little scary. I'm more of, like I said, a touchy feely. I got to be able to, so it's not my thing. But I guess it's a different era. You can't I guess it's easy to knock it before you try it. It's just I know it's not something I would enjoy, and just between not knowing kind of ahead of time, I'm not going to enjoy this, and not really knowing the landscape. It's sort of an easy decision for me to say, you know what, not my thing. I do fractional shares. I think someone would say, well, John, how do you do fractional shares? And you're never going to have that. You might own a small part of that or percentage of that card, but you're never going to have the card itself. But my answer to that is that card exists. I may never
Yeah.
physically have it in my possession, but I own a small part of it. Just like sort of like stocks, right? When you buy stocks,
Yeah.
you own a small piece of whatever company that stock is representative of. So I don't people like to compare sort of fractionals to NFT. I don't view them
Mhm.
as the same. Kind of your thoughts on fractional? Do you do them, or and kind of what do you how do you view those?
I haven't just because, like, honestly, like, full transparency, like, I don't have the type of money that I'm investing in, like,
Yeah,
big cards. Like, my big cards are, like, PSA 9s, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
yeah,
more like the collector end, like, so like I sick out my PC, but like as far as like Michael Jordan rookies or anything like that, like I have LeBron rookies, but he's also a Cavalier, so like I got
yeah,
that like when it was affordable.
yeah,
So for the most part, like like I might have some stuff that's pretty cool, but like anything that would be worth fractionalizing is just like completely outside my price range right now. But hopefully
well,
one day I'll be able to afford the whole dang thing.
yeah, well, fractionals. Here's the nice thing. Take a look. If I'm going to sound like a salesman here, and I'm not really trying
Yeah.
to do it on purpose. Fractionals can be very cheap. They can go for $5-10 a share, and it's just kind of fun. And you can even make, not that that's what you necessarily always thinking, but you can make a little money in the long run with them. But it's just a fun opportunity. I own I don't know. I think 10 shares of the 1913 Babe Ruth, what people would consider
Nice.
his first card. I mean, it was only $50 or $75. I can't. Maybe it was 100. Maybe they were $10 a share. But I own 10 shares, and it's kind of goofy and fun to say, hey, I own a small piece of that card. Now,
Yeah.
let's be real. I'm never gonna actually physically have the card and own it, but even that small percentage, it's kind of fun. Something to look at, think about. But I want to get into TGT grading. You're a part of that.
Sure.
It's
Yes,
it's
sir.
you're from Pittsburgh, like you said, but you're now
Yes, sir.
in California. Kind of how did this all how did this all give us kind of the timeline to how this all went down for you?
Sure. So this actually all started via YouTube, believe it or not. So like I said, I used to do a lot of group submitting and stuff like that. And back when CSG first launched, I had found that like a lot of their Beckett staff was going over there XYZ. So I'd started group submitting for CSG because I could get slabs obviously done much cheaper through them than I was through some of the other companies and whatnot. And they were a knowledgeable grading company because it was coming from Beckett. Plus, they had the track record of comic books and other stuff too. So I started group submitting for them. And Alan, the guy who's the CEO of TGT, caught one of those live streams where I was just live going through a stack of cards that people sent in. and I was going over kind of seeing which ones had flaws, what the flaws were, and if I thought that that kicked it out of being a 9, because most of my clients wanted 9s and higher with their stuff, so I would go through kind of pre-grade the cards to kind of just determine what I thought they would grade. So as I'm doing this live, he's like, "Wow, this guy's actually like kind of knows what he's talking about." So like he brought me in for like an interview, and kind of like one thing led to another, and you know, TGT became a thing. So it was just basically an idea that we had. You know, why the idea for me was, as a group submitter sending to all these different companies and getting multiple grades back, it's like, well, how, why, like, what are they looking at? What, you know, so like the whole thing for us was, why don't we just be the only company that actually says, hey, look, here's how the sausage is made. Like, this is literally your grade and why we gave it to you, with like a detailed explanation. So like that was literally what it was. It was just like four guys that came together. Myself, Alan, Chef Marte, he's been my best friend since I was like a little kid, and Drew, who's from Kentucky. We got together and we were able to basically just start this thing like with bootstrapping it.
Yeah, sometimes fly by the seat of your pants, right? But sometimes sometimes that's the best way. Sometimes it works out to be the best way. California a little bit different than Pittsburgh. Is someone has been to
Oh, way
Pittsburgh
different.
a lot of times. Talk about sort of that move, culturally and mindset wise. Has
Mhm.
it been the transition? Has it been difficult? Do you like California? I mean, I'm sure you like it, but just kind of talk about the differences. Someone, like you said, born and raised in Pittsburgh and now on the West Coast.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I love it out here thus far. The weather's wonderful. I'm so used to like, even when it's nice in Pittsburgh, it's like schizophrenic weather, to where like it's real nice one minute, but then next thing you know, it's either raining or snowing. Like it's like
Yeah,
the weirdest thing, but like the weather there is so schizophrenic even when it's supposed to be nice. So in the winter, being like in shorts and a t-shirt is like awesome for me. Because right now, like in Pittsburgh, it's like freezing. So
yeah,
that's nice. The biggest shock for me really was just honestly, it was the homelessness that kind of threw me off, because like I live in Hollywood, so like I live like a block off of like the Walk of Fame that like they do all the
yeah,
red carpets on and like all that stuff. So you think of like glitz and glamour when you think of Hollywood, but like literally all down the Walk of Fame, and like nothing against like homeless people, because I used to, before I got into this, used to work with homeless people.
yeah,
But like literally it looks like human beings have been littered on the sidewalk, you know,
yeah,
tents and just sleeping bags. Like it breaks my heart, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because like in Pittsburgh, you see homeless people, but like you don't see like the sheer quantity of them like
yeah,
LA has, you know what I mean? And it's probably just because there's a lot more people here than there is in Pittsburgh, and the fact that
yeah,
it's a lot warmer here, you know, because in Pittsburgh it's a lot harder to be homeless than it is,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
here, because unfortunately, if you're homeless in Pittsburgh through a winter like this, you might not make it. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough, and I feel the same way. I'm like I said, I'm originally from New York City, so very
Mhm.
similar there. And you like to help everybody if you could, and it's tough. It's tough to see, and everyone's, well, some of it's
Mhm.
self inflicted, some of it might be, and a lot of it isn't. And
Mhm.
it's not my job to decipher that. It's just
Mhm.
it's sad to see someone in that kind of predicament. How tough of a decision was it to make the move? Was it something that was an easy call to make, or did you have to sort of think about it and kind of talk about that?
For me, it was semi easy, just in the sense that really the only thing I really had in Pittsburgh keep me there is my mom, and she's getting close to the age of retirement. She can retire and come to the sunny California.
Yeah,
You know, I love Pittsburgh. It'll always be my home. Like I'll go there, you know, several times a year. But I mean, it's just I've said this a lot lately. The opportunities that are in California, like in Los Angeles, more so than Pittsburgh, it's just drastically better. You know what I mean? There's a lot more resources. There's just like uh, I put it this way, like the people who are the best at technology, at innovation, at like all of the things that I feel in my heart TGT should be, like they're located in Los Angeles, New York, like the major capitals. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So a lot of the growth that we couldn't experience just being regionally located to Pittsburgh, now that we have another office on the West Coast, there's like a lot more opportunities for us. Like in a sense that like we've even made several like really awesome contacts just since being out here.
Yeah.
But I think another thing too is our CEO's always lived in LA, so he's kind of been steering the ship from Los Angeles this whole time. So it only really made sense to like have kind of an office where Alan was located as well.
Yeah, we talked about that hobby boom, Anthony. We've seen a lot of new grading companies kind of come out a lot. Obviously,
Mhm.
you got your bigger ones. Most people know who those are. Talk about the difficulties of sort of there's plenty of cards to go around. Don't get me wrong, but to compete in that space as sort of a new
Mhm.
brand, as a new grading company. Talk about some how do you do it? I guess maybe is more way to just ask you outright, like how do you go about
Yeah.
doing that?
It's very hard. And one thing I say all the time, because like I meet a lot of people at like card shows, because I honestly, if there's a card show, I'll be there. So I've met a lot of people that are even in like say other grading companies, like newer ones that are just like upstarts, and they'll say, "Hey man, like I know you're not supposed to tell me since you're technically the competition, but the way I look at it, like when we first started, we were running into so many issues with our press and the way we got it working. Because like the one we started with was from China, so like literally the instruction manuals in Chinese. The way we got it started was we went on Instagram to every grading company we could find and be like, "Hey, do you use this kind of ultrasonic welder?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And luckily, one of those companies answered, "Yes, we do." And we were able to figure it out. So, like, anytime there's ever been any kind of situation where somebody's wanted like help or anything like that, like I never hesitate to step out and to share kind of what we've learned. But I really think the one thing, and I tell every single person that's ever asked me this, if you're going to be a new grading company, you need to do something that other grading companies don't do, and you need to innovate in some way. Because if
sure.
not, you're just the same thing. Because early on, when we were first advertising for TGT, the biggest feedback we got, because we do custom labels, is you're just a ripoff of HGA. But without
Yeah,
like actually looking into kind of like what we do, we just, people just would discount, oh well, these guys are just trying to be HGA or just trying to be X, Y, or Z. And pretty much any company that steps into this space, they have to realize that it's already a prejudice field where people are already like, all right, PSA is top dog. Beckett and SGC, I guess they're okay, but for the most part, like most people are like towards like the big boys, which I understand. Like if you're looking to get the most bang for your buck in resale value, right now that's the way to go. You know what I mean? But the big thing is there's other people that are also looking for service, they're looking for turnaround time. So if you can meet the needs that people are looking to have met and no one else is meeting them, people will come to you to have those needs met. So that was kind of what our niche was, well, why don't we just show them how we grade the cards? You know what I mean? Because internally, we have to share this anyway. You know what I mean? Because we
sure.
have to give accountability for why we grade our cards the way we do. So before we release a card, our graders have to, we approve that our grader is right. So with that being the case, why not just share the same thing they share with us with the customer? So that was kind of how everything started.
Yes, don't get me going on HGA. I'm not a big fan of them, and so I'll tell you,
Mhm.
don't be like that. That's a show in itself, and I've done some social media stuff there. But uh, talk about any difficulties. We hear some supply issues
Mhm.
with cargo kind of being stranded, or has that affected what TGT does at all? Has it sidetracked you whatsoever, or no?
No, the only real issue we've had, there has been a plastic shortage that I know has affected most of the major grading companies. It only affected us on a major scale just because or I mean, excuse me, on a minor scale because we do like probably a fraction of what PSA or any of those other guys do. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, it did. It hasn't really, affected us a whole lot, but we have seen like a plastic shortage be something amongst the industry be pretty prevalent. In fact, other companies have actually had to change the type of plastic they've used or sub that out for like an acrylic or something like that. So, like, that has been sort of an issue, but as of right now, it hasn't really affected us. And we actually have a brand new slab that is in the process of being developed right now that it is American made and with materials that are very easily sourced. So,
yeah.
shouldn't be shouldn't be an issue moving forward.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too, to get onto a lot of people like to buy American made stuff, and so that'll be a feather in your cap as well. What is your at right now? I'll put you on the spot. What is your average turnaround times? I mean, obviously it's just approximate, but what generally someone mails their cards to TJT, when can they
Mhm.
expect to see them, graded and back in their hands?
So according to our website, it's 30 to 40 business days. But officially, now that we're in Los Angeles, it's a lot faster than that. The only
Yeah.
time we actually like had any issue with turnaround times is when we did the move because the moving company that picked up our press took almost a month to get it there. But luckily, we were cooking so
Yeah.
quick in Pittsburgh that by the time the stuff got there, we still had like a week or two before people's turnaround times came.
Yeah.
So we're pretty quick, but then again, keep in mind we're not grading 200,000 cards a week like PSA is either.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, I hear you. Well,
so
it's
if we had
good.
200,000, we might be a little slower, but
Yeah, yeah.
but
No, makes sense. And well, good man. Good for you. A little Steelers talk here. A little lighthearted. What are we doing at quarterback in 2022? What do you think?
man, I'm hoping they're going to pick up a free agent because I can't go another year of Mason Rudolph. Like the
Yeah.
the hairs I
Oh my
do have on
God.
my
I
head
like.
will
I already
lose.
liked you, Anthony. I already liked you. I just liked you. I'm not a Mason Rudolph guy as a Steeler fan.
Mhm,
I think he's going to be one of those just backup guys where if he has to come
mhm,
in for a game or two and you have to deal with him for a game or two, eh,
mhm.
you might be okay. But that he's not a starting quarterback in
I
this
agree.
league. I think when they drafted him, obviously I think they thought he was more than what they got. I really will be disappointed if that's the starter on the first, when the season officially starts. And to me, yeah, I mean, why sign Haskins if you're not at least going to give him an opportunity? But like you, I think free agent route, maybe even a
Mhm.
trade. We've heard
Yeah.
Jimmy G's name be
Yep.
mentioned. Um, another guy whose name's heated up is lately is Carson Wentz. That's my son, who's 22, is also a huge Steeler fan like me, is saying he thinks it's going to wind up being Wentz. I'm not even opposed to a Mitch Trubisky, who's actually
Mhm,
won in Chicago. It was just they weren't huge fan of him, and
mhm,
struggled at different times. But I'll say this: without knowing what we have in Haskins, the his time in Washington was very short, and it's hard to really gauge anything from that. So we're kind of taking out Haskins. Even a Trubisky would be better than anything we have right now, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. But like you took the words right out of my mouth. I don't think we can go
mhm,
in to the season with uh,
mhm,
you know Rudolph and Haskins. Kevin
mhm,
Colbert said that won't be the case. Who that other guy is, whether it's someone from the draft, I know they like
mhm,
Malik Willis out of Liberty, but I don't. The only way they're going to probably get him is they're going to have to move up. I don't know, and then I
mhm.
don't even know if they're going to be able to. So I wouldn't count. on Willis as much as they like him. That's another thing
Mhm.
Pittsburgh does, Anthony. I don't know how you feel. They always sort of tip their hand. Like when they like a guy, they scream it from the mountaintops. We love Willis.
Yep.
Well, you're not, if you know anything about drafts, like you don't want everyone and their mother to know, like who you're kind of looking at. Like you got to keep that close to
Mhm.
your vest. And so I don't know if they get a Willis or a Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. Um,
That's how we didn't get Darrell Revis that one year.
yeah, 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 and we can. There's probably other guys we don't even know about that they kind of shot themselves in the foot on. I don't know why they do that. They're
Mhm.
one of the few teams that that has. I'm sure they're not the only one, but I always, when teams say, "Oh, we love this guy," a lot of times it's usually a smoke screen. You're trying to make people think you really, and you're looking some other way. Pittsburgh sort of uses reverse psychology, but doesn't really fool anybody. So I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if they're going to get an early first round quarterback, maybe a Matt Corral. It's not a great quarterback class this year.
Mhm.
A lot of question marks, more than past years. So I think like you said, I think going out there and getting a
Mhm.
sort of an established starter, whether it's
Mhm.
Jimmy G, Trubisky, even Carson Wentz. I know the last playoff game, he was terrible with the Colts. But if you look at the year he had a very good
Oh
year.
yeah,
If other than
absolutely.
that clunker of a game, he had a pretty
Mhm.
good season. So I'm not opposed to a Wentz. I'm not saying, Wentz for 10 years, but until we get that next franchise guy that Roethlisberger really was,
Mhm.
um, you
Yeah,
know, they have talent. They've got to decide either rebuild or reload. I think if they're
yeah.
reloading, then you go out and get a free agent quarterback. If you're rebuilding, then you go
Mhm.
with a younger draft pick. But when you have TJ Watt, on your defense, I think you got to go for it now. And so I hope they make some good decisions. Hey, for the first time in a long time, right? We got cap space,
Yep.
$30 million. That's
Mhm.
a place Steeler fans know. I can't even remember the last time we had that kind of. I probably was a little kid and I didn't know what it wasn't a
Mhm.
cap at that point. So
Yeah.
it's a good place to be in. We'll see, where they spend their money. And I just like you, man.
Mhm.
If Mason Rudolph runs out on that
Mhm.
field on that first series on opening day of football, I will not be excited. I'll be excited that
No.
we have Steeler football back. I won't be excited to see that. And I hope, and nothing against Mason Rudolph. He's a nice guy, but I don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL that we have
Mhm.
now. And so hoping it's somebody else that maybe a little bit more mobile and can make plays
Mhm.
outside the pocket and that sort of thing. And we've got playmakers in Deontay Johnson. I think Juju's going to be gone, but we'll
Mhm.
see. They're probably going to bring in a veteran. Some of that cap money they have is probably going to be in a veteran receiver. So I mean, it's. I guess we can't complain. We could be a lot worse. Some fans of some other teams, but you always, if you know this as well as I do, Anthony. Right, as a Steeler fan, right, the goal should always be to compete for a Super Bowl
Oh yeah.
e- each year. I don't think Mason Rudolph gets my hopes up when it comes to that. So
No.
hopefully they make some nice moves, plug in some holes, and we
Mhm.
feel we feel a lot better going into 2022 because
Yeah.
they have a lot of talent there. They just got to fill a couple holes. Najee looks the part, and
Yep.
so that window, like the window's still open. They just got to make some good decisions here and be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, the more I think of it, like the best case scenario of them really would be just like bring in like a Jimmy G like stopgap type.
Yeah,
Whereas like this guy's literally already been competing for Super Bowls, like with the
yeah,
49ers. So a very similar built team that's very defensively dominant, can run the ball, has some big play receivers. Like the Steelers have all of those pieces. Like even like not quite to the extent of a George Kittle, but I think Fryermuth is going to
I
be
love
one
I
heck of
love
a tight
Pat
end.
Fryer move. I love
I
that.
do
That
too.
was a great.
I
It's
do.
funny when they made that pick. My son, I follow college football. My son, I'm like, I like. He's a good tight end. There's a lot of other ways we could have went, and my son's
Yeah.
like, I mark my words. You're gonna eat your like. You're gonna say you love that pick, and I'm saying I love that pick now. Right, that to see, he's gonna even get better. He had a great rookie year. He's gonna get
Yeah.
better as he gets experience. So yeah, I think we're set at running back. We're set at tight
Mhm.
end. Couple, could use a corner or two, but our defense is pretty solid. Um, there's some holes. But the boat's not flooding. It's not taking on that much water. We
Mhm.
plug a couple spots, and this thing, we can be
Yep.
competitive. I just hope they go out there and do it. Pittsburgh, as you know, traditionally always believes they can fix everything through the draft. I don't think you can do that anymore in modern football with free agency and that sort of thing. So I hope they've been a little more on Pittsburgh like the last few years,
Mhm.
making some trades, getting someone like Minka in a rare
Mhm.
trade and signing some guys. So I feel good in that respect. We'll see, but I'm not opposed to. Yeah, I think it's a great analogy with Jimmy G. Just for a couple years, uh, he's not flashy. He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes or even Matthew Stafford, but he's proven he can win some football games, and
Mhm.
that's we need someone like that. Where I hate to pile on Mason again. I just don't feel that with
Mhm.
him. I feel something different. So we'll see. It's going to be fun. I don't know. Well, however it shakes down, we always, like I say, everyone starts 0 wins, 0 losses, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you coming on and sharing
I
some of that.
appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. Give out your website, anything you want to plug,
Sure.
websites, YouTube channel, all that good stuff.
Sure. So my YouTube, as you guys can see, is just Picksburgh as it's spelled there. Also, I'm on Instagram. Picksburgh74 is me on there. Also, if you guys are interested in checking out Transparent Grading Team and actually seeing why your cards grade the way they do, it's just transparentgradingteam.com. Those are like the three big ways to reach me.
Yep. All right. Well, Anthony, I appreciate it. Check out what Anthony's done. Great content, and now on the grading side of the house, that's awesome. And it's just great story how they just kind of saw you doing that, and one thing led to another. You never know. I always say with content creation, you never
Yeah,
know who might be watching. Right? And
yeah,
you're living proof of that. So, great
absolutely.
great story and continued success. And
Thank
I'll
you.
be talking to you. Maybe I will have to. Well, hopefully, we'll either commiserate in misery with the Steelers or celebrate some happy times. Either way. So,
Absolutely.
all right, Anthony. Take care. Enjoy that California weather.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Good night.